And we are back with a new episode of What Should We Watch Tonight, a movie podcast where we answer cinema's burning question, what should we watch tonight? In the show, we talk about hidden gems, undiscovered, untalked about, overlooked movies, or the new releases, which we'll talk about one of those today. My name is EJ.
And I'm Tony.
Tony, thank you so much for joining me this week. We have another big episode. We have big topics today. We usually start off with movie news. We have one of the biggest movie newses ever, one of the biggest filmmakers ever, Mr. Tarantino, which I actually have his book back there. Stole from a public library. Sorry, guys. I know. Don't charge me my 15 cents or whatever. Yeah, Tarantino has a movie coming out, or had a movie coming out called The Movie Critic. We're both movie critics. I was really intrigued by what he was doing, but he set this rule on him years ago that he's making 10 movies.
Right.
He doesn't want to overstay his welcome, which, you know, listening to the new Taylor Swift album, seeing the new Zack Snyder movie, sometimes I feel like artists are overstaying their welcome, and maybe we do need to slow it down a little bit. So I understand what Tarantino's attempt is, but he's canceled this movie after it was supposed to morph into, from recent reports saying it was supposed to be like in the same universe as Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Brad Pitt's character was going to appear, but at one point it was a Paul Walter Hauser-led movie. I think he was in the running for the lead actor as well. What the hell was happening? What do you feel about Tarantino kind of getting rid of this potential 10th movie and the whole final retirement conversation?
Yeah, I mean, I understand that if he feels that he has done his part and that he wants to move on to other things, I know he's talked about becoming a novelist, and that's totally fine if that's what he wants to go into. If he's done with filmmaking, it is a bit odd to arbitrarily say he's going to make 10 movies and that's it, even though he has already technically made 10 movies.
Yes, because he counts Kill Bill as one. It is one, but it's two separate releases on my Letterboxd, so you know, you already got 10 on Letterboxd.
So, you know, although I may think it's a little silly to have an arbitrary number set like that, and also it's disappointing to see that he's dropping a movie that he's already been working on for some time, it would seem. I trust him. I think he is, you know, one of the modern greats as far as a filmmaker is concerned. And if he feels that for whatever reason the story that he was working on, he doesn't want to continue with it, then I trust his judgment, and I will be excited to see whatever he decides to create in its place.
Yeah, I think the conversation kind of gets troublesome because, you know, he had the Star Trek movie he was working on. He has this movie. Bro, I just feel like he's limiting himself. But again, does he want to get to 15 movies and then 14, 13, and 12 are bad movies? Right. I get what he wants to do. It just feels, like you said, arbitrary. It feels like you're hindering good ideas, because this could have been really fun, but now he's just like, well, no, now it's not this anymore. It's not this. And it's troublesome because I want him to end his legacy, what he wants to end it on. And again, you know, I read the novel. He writes well. Yeah. I think there's other filmmakers, like I love the John Waters books a little bit more. I think he has a little bit more fun, a little bit more different insight. This one was a little bit very personal, and I'm like, I'm learning about Tarantino's stepfather dropping him off at the movie theater. That's definitely, it's as long-winded as his movies can be. I just feel like Tarantino, he needs to take a step back. He needs a good producer. He needs someone to be like, bro, this is, you know, where we need, you know, we talked about last episode, Nolan and all these filmmakers who are big-headed people needing a good extra writer, just to be like, hey, I think Tarantino needs a producer to be like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
You know, not an agent, you know, just someone to be like, hey, you know, that's what he had a really good editor for a long time. You know, same thing with Scorsese has his editor. Those people kind of helped Tarantino's movies out. The last two without his longtime filmmaker editor have been the longer, you know, longer, badly paced. I just think Tarantino needs that team around him, just as a reminder of, you're good. You don't have to just stick here.
Yeah, and that's a problem that you're going to run into with anyone who becomes great at something. You know, you have the studios that are providing you with your budget, and if you are someone like a Tarantino or a Zack Snyder or whoever, oftentimes you're going to run, or even a George Lucas, where you're just kind of given free reign over the creative process. And although you may be great, and Tarantino is undoubtedly great, you still need someone to kind of rein you in and to kind of keep you on track. And I think that might be part of what he's missing here is someone to just kind of keep him on track with the process and to kind of lead him toward that promised land. You know, he's again though, I'm hesitant to even say that because I am willing to wait for whatever Tarantino decides to do. If it takes him another 20 years to make a movie, then I'll wait for it, because I know that whatever he does make, it's going to be 100% his vision and exactly what he wanted to make, with no reservations or no compromises. So I'm willing to wait for that. I do wish that he had someone to kind of keep him a little more on track, though.
Yeah, I think that would be the biggest help for him, but it's Tarantino. We can't tell him what to do. It's, like Michael Jordan retiring, coming back. There's these greats who come, Tom Brady did it infamously in football. You can't really tell them what to do, but then look at Tom Brady coming back after a Super Bowl, not that great. You know what I mean? There's these things where I'm like, I don't want him to ruin his legacy, but what is the legacy? Can he even ruin it? It's complicated. And let's jump to a very different filmmaker side, very different vibe. There's a new Scary Movie coming out.
Oh, yes.
I liked the first two Scary movies. We'll talk about comedy. Kind of the theme of this episode will be a little bit later on, is comedies in general. But do you think there's a place for a parody movie still? And I'll have to tell you a good casting note that they're planning, or that was put out into the universe. But yes, first off, do you think we have a place for parodies?
In a word, yes. I think that there is still room for parody. I think that, unfortunately, that kind of got just beat into the ground over the years of all of these.
You mean Date Movie and Disaster Movie?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so it's unfortunate that we've kind of had our fill of that, and more than our fill. But I do think that there's still room for quality parody. And if they can kind of reignite that flame from, the original few, then I think that there is room for that. I think that with kind of the resurgence in some horror movies and like horror adjacent movies, whether it's the more recent Scream movies that have done quite well, I think that we're kind of in that sweet spot of nostalgia, where we're just far enough removed that we can reintroduce these properties, and there are people that grew up with it who will be willing to go and watch it, and if they can make it of reasonable quality, then you're going to have that audience.
Yeah, definitely, I agree with you. I love a good parody, like a Scary Movie 1 or Not Another Teen Movie. Those are just very of the time, but, again, you look back on them, and you're like, ooh, some things have not aged well. Yeah. But yeah, I think there is a time and a place for it, and I think it should come back. So I wanted to kind of mention the note of casting. So Melissa Barrera, who was fired from Scream, just was recently asked about these new Scary movies, and she says, I would love to join this movie. I think that would be one nice middle finger to getting fired from a movie for speaking whatever political ideas she had. That whole controversy was quite strenuous, and I don't even want to get into it. But I just think in general, what an interesting comeback is coming back to she'll be the first actor, I believe, that would go from a Scream movie to a Scary Movie. In general, that doesn't happen with parodies too often. Yeah. It's not like we would have actors who were in this movie to go here. Austin Powers, I don't think they ever really brought in an old Bond to kind of make a cameo. This doesn't really happen too often. So I think it could be really good. What do you want to see with this new Scary Movie? Who do you want to see made fun of, and any casting choices that you think would be fun?
Yeah. So, well, first off, Melissa Barrera is kind of having a pretty big year and a big couple years, I guess, recently with the Scream and now with Abigail. She's in that. So I'm kind of excited to see what she does, if she does come over to Scary Movie. I think there is so much room for them to make fun of and to parody a lot of the more recent horror movies. I mean, they could even go, an extra level into the parody and make fun of the parody movies if they want to take it to that degree. So I think there's plenty of space for it. I think what I'm interested in is, you talked briefly about some of those older parodies and comedies, and how looking back at them from a modern lens, they might be a little bit problematic or questionable. So I think what we have here is kind of an opportunity to see, how much can we actually make these movies funny from the perspective of the more like modern view, and do we have to rely on these kind of tired tropes and stereotypes and things like that, or can we kind of elevate the comedy a bit more? So
yeah, I want to see something offensive. You know what I mean? I miss that. I think there's a place for it. One is how you make fun of people.
Right.
That is the biggest thing. If you feel like you're punching down, or if you feel like you are maliciously mocking something, we don't need it.
Yeah,
but
just
again,
being lazy.
Yeah, just being lazy. But again, there's room to make fun of, queer people, black folk, white folk, Republican, Democrat. There's room to make fun of everyone, of every nationality, of every walk of life. How you do it, and that's a big conversation with like Chappelle, where like I feel like he's lost that it feels more malicious now, or it feels a little bit more. Word again, not that he's bad or anything, just feels like he's lost that point of view that I originally liked. And that's where I felt like a lot of the scary movies were just getting kind of lazy, just getting kind of mean. And I want to see a movie make fun of things. I want to see it be all the time. But at the same time, we'll talk about a parody later on. You don't also have to be that, to be funny, I think there's a comedy that, Todd Phillips infamously said of like, well, I can't make comedies anymore because everything's like too political and a little too. I'm like, no, you can.
Yeah.
I just think, but yeah, I agree with you. I think there's time and place, how we do it, who we do it, and I personally would like to see Anna Faris and Regina Hall come back.
That would be.
I have seen that this is a total reboot. So, but they weren't in the last couple. They weren't in Scream 5, I believe. So, I don't know, bring them back. At least specifically, Anna Faris, one of the best comedic actresses we had. I would love to see her come back.
What has she been up to lately?
She was on that TV show for a long time, Moms, on CBS.
Okay.
Like a just nice, CBS sitcom. And then, after the divorce from Chris Pratt, she kind of stayed back. But, again, we have good comedic actresses. I think Melissa Barrera being the opening moment would be hilarious. Have her get killed off. Great. And then one of the few things I want to see is I want them to make fun of A24 elevated horror movies.
Yes.
I think we could do a lot with Midsommar, with Hereditary, mostly just Ari Aster movies.
Again, there's so much new fodder.
Yeah.
There's so much more space now for them to kind of revisit that kind of comedy.
Yeah.
And I think, that's a great idea. Making fun of some of the more elevated horror movies that we've been getting from, a studio like A24, who's a fantastic studio, has made incredible movies.
Yeah, they're a juggernaut.
But like you said, anything is anything can be made fun of, regardless of how great it might be. That maybe even more so now. There's even more space to make fun of something like that. So I'd be very curious to see it, and I think they have a lot of space to work with.
All right, we are done with our movie news. That was you had some great points there. I want to see it. We're going to talk about comedy a little bit more later, but we're going to take a pit stop in the next segment to vampire ballerinas. We'll be back.
Please let me out. I'm scared. Cut the shit.
All right, we are back with our movie review section. I actually missed the screening this week for this movie. I've not got the chance to see it yet, but tell me about Abigail, the newest movie from Radio Silence, Vampire Ballerina, which, is it a spoiler? Is that that's been a big conversation,
Yes.
the trailer for this movie, the spoilers. Tell me all about this.
Okay, so Abigail is a movie about a group of criminals.
Sorry, I just love Abigail is a movie.
It is a film.
Pictures and audio, yes.
About a group of criminals who kidnap a cute little 12-year-old ballerina girl, only to find out that she is also a murderous vampire. And
okay.
Yeah, and it's got an interesting cast, as you mentioned. It's by the team, the writers and directors of the most recent Scream movies, so they've got a bit of experience behind them working in that kind of horror realm. As far as the spoiler aspect of it, the fact that she is a vampire, I'm of two minds with that. One, I understand that they have to be able to sell tickets.
Yeah.
So if you just say, oh, it's a movie about a girl getting kidnapped, not a lot of people are probably going to buy that. But you tell them that that girl is a vampire, then it's like, okay, I'll check that out. And I do think the movie would have been better if you didn't know that going into it.
So the movie does try to hold that, it makes it a reveal?
Yes.
Ooh.
So
that's marketing and movie not being aligned, I think.
Right. So they're, the crux of the movie is that these criminals have kidnapped this girl. They have to hold her in this mansion for 24 hours.
Okay.
And there's a third party, played by Giancarlo Esposito, who is going to negotiate a ransom for her.
Okay. I love Giancarlo. Man, that man takes a paycheck.
Yes, he does. And so as they're watching this girl overnight in this mansion, they start to get picked off. Things start to happen. Things are revealed about who her father is and that he's some kind of criminal mastermind.
Oh, boy.
And so there's kind of an uncertainty as to, who she is, what's happening, why are people getting killed. And then it is revealed that she is a vampire, which of course was already revealed in the trailers.
Yeah.
So that is unfortunate that they've already kind of let the cat out of the bag there. But it still maintains a level of entertainment that I feel like this movie tells you right from the beginning, from before the beginning, from when you read the plot synopsis or when you watch a trailer, you know, okay, if I'm interested in this type of movie, then there's a lot to enjoy here. But if I tell you that plot synopsis and you immediately go, oh my gosh, I don't want to see that, then you don't. Then you're not going to like it. It is ridiculous. It is wildly gory.
Okay. I was curious on what gore was going to be like, because Radio Silence is hit or miss with it. Ready or Not, which was their kind of big mainstream debut, they have a segment in VHS, which I love the VHS movies.
Yeah.
They have Ready or Not, which is the Samara Weaving wedding movie. Did you ever see that when it came out?
No, I didn't.
So yeah, not going to tell you much about that. Check that out. A light recommendation. But yeah, Ready or Not was really interesting. But gore was okay. And there are two Scream movies, I guess coming from the Wes Craven era. Not very. Wes Craven wasn't the most gore.
Right.
As Wes Craven is, you would think his movies weren't that gory. These movies have upped the gore. So I was kind of intrigued of how bloody it was going to be. I think my big question for you is, one, what's the gore like in that? And who was your favorite actor of it? Because this has like a big group of young actors with Dan Stevens, Melissa Barrera, I think Catherine Newton, Angus Cloud, Giancarlo Esposito, which is not a young actor, but young at heart. Yeah, tell me about that.
So as far as the gore is concerned, there are a number of beheadings and limbs getting severed and people getting stabbed, and I don't want to spoil anything, but there are definitely some moments that are maybe not shocking if you're a horror aficionado, but definitely not for the faint of heart. And as far as the acting talent, I think that's one of the strong points of this movie. I think that the characters and the way that they're portrayed, they're very two-dimensional, right?
Yeah.
They are kind of caricatures of themselves, but it works here. I think that everyone is going into that, whether it's Dan Stevens or Melissa Barrera or even Catherine Newton, who I haven't been the biggest Catherine Newton fan.
Yeah, I remember, I think it was Ant-Man and the Wasp, you were not the kindest of her work there, so.
Yeah, and what's the one recently with Cole Sprouse and...
Oh, Lisa Frankenstein.
Lisa Frankenstein, I didn't love either, but I think that she's very entertaining and enjoyable in this, as well as, what's his name from Euphoria?
Oh, Angus Cloud.
Angus Cloud. Yeah. I think that the way that the characters work together in the movie is really entertaining.
Okay.
My favorite character of the movie, I'm forgetting his name, but he is the really big, burly guy.
Yes.
He is so entertaining,
good.
And his character seems to have, they all have a fair bit of backstory, and they kind of explore that in the movie in a way that, they have to express the backstory of the characters, so they try to do it in a way that isn't just exposition.
Yeah.
And I think that they do a good enough job in that. And when the backstory of the characters is revealed, you do tend to feel a little bit more for them. You become more concerned with their well-being.
Who's the lead of it? Who would you say? It seems ensemble, but...
Yeah, the lead is Melissa Barrera.
Which is funny because those trailers have made her not seem. I've seen a lot more Catherine Newton and Dan Stevens than I've seen of her, but I just saw a clip recently where she was talking to the girl in the cage and she was like, stop the little act and all that. I was like, I like her so much. That's good. I will definitely check it out now that you've given me, because I was worried about, one, they were slasher characters. I thought they were going to be most dry, boring as slasher movies usually have, bad characters, but glad to hear that it's a good collection of actors. Dan Stevens, between this and Godzilla this year, he's playing some fun weirdos, I guess.
Yeah.
I love him.
I will say that it does fall into a number of cliches. Yeah. And, I think for me that my biggest fault with the movie was the way that it kind of wrapped up and concluded. It felt pretty formulaic.
Okay.
But overall, I really enjoyed it. I think it's a fun time. Probably, to something that you would want to watch with maybe a group of friends, have a couple of drinks, and just have a good laugh and watch some pretty gory, entertainment.
Oh, it's fun watching you be the one who have to review a horror movie this time. Well, all right, so that is it for our movie review section. I don't really have much to offer to that one, but I will say that now. You've sold me enough on it. All right, let's get into what we're here for. We're going to be talking about next, what should we watch tonight? And we are back with the title of the show, What Should We Watch Tonight? All right, Tony, I'm going to let you start this week.
Oh, okay.
Overall theme I had for this one, I told you, is let's talk about comedies, because I really want comedies to come back. We just talked about Scary Movie. I love a good comedy. You know what? I want Tarantino to make a funny movie again, because the man's been a little bit serious, that. Yeah. I want to see that. What do you want to see going on with comedies, and what is your recommendation right now?
Yeah, so I have a recommendation that's a bit of a twofer, but I'm going to focus on one here, and both have comedic elements to them. One was another movie celebrating an anniversary, as is kind of my pattern here, and that is the Jennifer Garner, Mark Ruffalo classic, 13 Going on 30.
Wow, I've never once heard that movie referred to as classic.
It's a classic of sorts, depending on who you grew up with. But so that is celebrating its 20th anniversary. But the movie that I really want to recommend for this week is also celebrating its 20th anniversary, and it's a movie that we touched on, I think, in the 2 episodes ago, and that is the original Mean Girls. So Mean Girls is celebrating its 20th anniversary. I know we talked about the more recent version of that movie, which I said was one of my favorite movies of the first quarter of 2024. And it is. I do want to kind of put a caveat on that because I had forgotten another movie I had seen. So although Mean Girls, the 2024 version, is one of my favorite movies of the year so far, above that is a movie called Suncoast, which is a local-based film from a creator out of Clearwater.
Yes.
And that is, without a doubt,
Yes.
I think the best movie I've seen so far this
Nico
year.
Parker, Laura Linney, Woody Harrelson, great cast, good movie. I like that one a lot.
Yes, but speaking of Mean Girls, the original, if you are a millennial like us, you grew up with that movie, it's such a snapshot of a time and a place, and I think that it's still, to this day, wildly entertaining. There are a couple of things here and there that might not have aged as well, but all of the characters, the writing, Tina Fey, it's so well done, and I think there's just a lot to enjoy, and I think it's one that you enjoy as well.
Yeah, it is. And it's a movie where let's go back to what we were talking about. There is things that they are making fun of everyone in this movie,
Yes.
but none of it feels malicious. None of it feels like I'm legit mocking this group of people. Like,
Right.
I mean, there's that scene where like she just goes up to like the black folk and just Jumbo. It's just so funny, and it makes fun of her.
Yeah.
It makes fun of the unfriendly black hotties, is what they call them as well. It's such a good joke of there. So there's a lot of jokes like that. I mean, there is the Asian people who drop the N-word, that one scene that I'm like, forgot that was there. But, so yeah, no, I love it. It's great. I do think I rewatched it recently, and it just didn't hit me the way.
Really?
I don't know. It upset me because I loved it growing up.
Right.
I rewatched it recently. I thought it was okay. Like something about it, I just felt like, I don't know. I wasn't laughing as much this time around, and maybe again, it just could have just been the time I watched it. But again, still a great movie. I think Tina Fey wrote one hell of a script, and almost a timeless script. If they didn't change so much in this new one of the jokes and stuff, I could have felt it. Maybe I would have loved if the new Mean Girls was a throwback to the 2000s, because I love the 2000s aesthetic. I love the Hollister kind of pant vibe, the mall culture. Like, it's just there. Flip phones. It's so 2004, 2005 that I appreciate it, and I kind of miss that. That's why I like Suncoast as well.
Right.
A nostalgic, mid-2000s movie there. Yeah, I like Mean Girls a lot. It's Mean Girls.
Do you think that much of the enjoyment of that movie is because of nostalgia, or?
Yes, I don't know, because one of the examples I used this on is I tried to show my mom Mean Girls, maybe 10 years ago.
Didn't hit.
She just hated it.
Wow.
And I just was like, I get it. There are certain movies like that. Like, I love Addams Family Values. I don't know if I could show that to, maybe.
Great.
My little one has watched some of it, and he thought Uncle Fester was great. I'm like, Christopher Lloyd, we need a whole episode talking about that movie. I didn't know you liked it. That's great.
I like it more than the original.
Yeah, it's then we'll almost have to scratch this whole segment and just talk about that movie now. We'll put that in the pin there. But no, I think it's great. It's just it's a throwback to a time. I just don't know if it aged 100% well. Not to say my pick has aged better, but we have an anniversary movie that I'm joining you with, and talk about comedies, talk about this time period. We're talking about 1999's, which would be celebrating 25th anniversary, I believe, of Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me, the sequel.
Wow.
It's perfect. It's perfect. I cannot tell you how much I love this movie, how much it's aged amazingly, how much the mini-me stuff, just the multiple Mike Myers. I love Mike Myers so much, and I just miss movies like Austin Powers. Yeah. We need movies like this again. We need a Mean Girls. We need an Austin Powers. We need a scary movie. Movies that, one, lovingly satire, lovingly parodying something, but Austin Powers was beyond that. Were you an Austin Powers?
Oh, yes.
Again, you're
Absolutely.
a millennial, so yes. Like, it's crazy to think, and I love that. I like International Man of Mystery, which is the first one. just too with like Heather Graham coming in and like just that whole vibe. And I mean, I even love Goldmember with Beyonce. I think I like Goldmember a lot. I think not as good as the other two, but it has its moments. What's some of your memories of Austin Powers? Was this where do you just remember how big this was?
Oh yeah, I remember Austin Powers was one of those movies that when it came out so the sequel would have been 2000. You said 99. So it was around that time where I was in elementary, maybe middle school. And I'm a bit older than you.
Yeah.
And it just became the language of the youth at that time. It's like something like the South Park movie when that came out.
Yep.
All the kids in school were just spouting lines from that movie, doing the voices from the characters in the movie. And that's exactly what Austin Powers was. It was a point in time where all of the youth just kind of latched onto this character and onto these jokes, and it just became a part of the zeitgeist.
Yeah, if you want to know what like elementary school was like in 1999, 2000, it's kids saying "Suck It" from WWF. It is Austin Powers' "Yeah Babies." It's Kyle's mom song from South Park. Like those are just defining moments, and I love that you brought that up because those were pop culture landmarks, and Austin Powers was that. And we see comedies now. Maybe Barbie is the last comedy that became a touchstone of pop culture, like quoted, I'm just Ken, everyone knew it, and there's one I loved a couple years ago, which a lot of people didn't see. It's kind of a forgotten pandemic era movie. Barb and Star Go to Vista Del Mar. It's Kristen Wiig's movie.
Okay.
It's her and Annie something. She's the one who wrote Bridesmaids with her. It's them two, Annie Momano, I think her name is. It is one of the funniest movies I've ever seen in my entire life.
Wow.
It reminds me of Austin Powers. Now, asterisk, it's campy, it's weird, but it's that kind of movie where like the Austin Powers movie exists in its own universe with its own sense of logic, and I miss movies like that where comedies just felt like they could be ridiculous. And so what was some of your things with Spy Who Shagged Me? I know this was my pick, but I want to know what really do you remember from this, and any bits from this movie that really stood out to you?
So it's hard to because I haven't watched them in quite some time, so it's hard to distinguish between which came from which movie.
Yes, this would be things like We Do Not Gnaw on Our Mini Mr. Bigglesworth.
Yes. Seth Green.
Yes, he is even crazier in this movie.
I absolutely love him in all of these movies, but especially in the second one. I think his character just goes completely insane, and it's so great to see him kind of playing this like the straight man, at the beginning, and then kind of slowly devolving into insanity.
I think this is the Zip It movie.
Yes,
because they have a similar gag in 1 and 2, but it's just the gags in this movie. It's endlessly funny. It's timeless in a weird way, and what I love about it is I'm not a James Bond person,
right?
But I understood so much of the jokes, and it educated me on. They have Odd Job, which I forgot they call him Random Task in this movie. Those are those jokes that I never understood. I never understood the Basil's character and all that. These are things that like I learned from Austin Powers. So I love that it was able to kind of get me in, and I'm still not a James Bond movie person, but I love that it showed me the spy movie world because again, it was so lovingly making fun of it, but not even making fun of it. It's weird of what this was because it's not a parody or satire really. It feels like it's somewhere in the middle of that.
Right. It makes fun of it, but at the same time elevates it and makes it more accessible and entertaining.
It's like a decent spy movie too. Like I like the plots of these movies, and so I miss these movies, and I miss comedies. We brought up Todd Haynes with. Or Todd Phillips, Todd Haynes with May December. We brought up Todd Phillips though with Hangover. Even Hangover was a good time. I think one of the last great comedies we've had. This is one again me explaining how much I like some comedies. I love 21 Jump Street.
Me too.
I love 22 Jump Street. I think those are good, and I want to go back to those movies.
Yes.
I want comedies to feel like comedies again. Do you miss comedies like just a straight up comedy?
Yeah, it's really difficult because we haven't gotten a lot of just straight comedies. And we also talked about, I think previously, I forget whether it was on a podcast or just in person, about straight like a romance or a drama.
Yeah, we talked about that with Challengers, yeah.
Yeah, and how now everything feels like it has to wear all these different hats. It can't just be a comedy. It can't just be a romance drama. It has to be all of these other things. Yeah. And so to kind of go back to the roots and to create something that is simple yet effective, like something like Austin Powers or 21 Jump Street or Mean Girls. You know, I would love to see more of that in the future. And I think that, you know, especially now with streaming platforms, there's so much more opportunity, there's so much more room to create these mid-budget movies. I think it's something that I'd like to see a lot.
And the person I would kind of go to right now is Prime Video. They had Red Wine and Royal Blue last year, which was like an LGBT rom-com. They've had another one this year with, you know, rom-coms is kind of another lost art, you know, 10 Things I Hate About You, these kind of things I miss so much of getting a good rom-com. And I think, that, you know, the other one I saw this year that I kind of liked was Ricky Stenicki, which was that weird Prime Video one, which wasn't a great movie, but again, it felt like a comedy. It felt like a throwback to that time period. I miss it, and I just kind of wish, again, no streaming services really found the comedy gold yet, and like I don't understand why people want to laugh. Where are the like? It can't be that hard. We finally formulated horror movies again, where we've gotten, even if they're not, every release isn't great, we're still getting good quality horror movies. We dipped out for a little bit, you know, 2010s, which I think comedies took over 2010s a little bit, and then superhero movies took over everything. I just kind of want to see. I want to see comedy get that moment that horror movies had, that superhero movies. They've even had the makeover. If you look at the 2000s to 2008 with Dark Knight and Iron Man in 1 year.
Yeah.
2008 shifted things dramatically. Every genre's had that, and I want comedy to have that again. We were almost there with 21 Jump Street, a couple ones there. I want to see it again.
I think we will. I think, you know, we kind of fell into kind of the world of superhero movies for a while now.
And all of those were just comedies anyway.
Yeah, and
Well, the Marvel ones especially. All of them were just light comedies, like a second genre.
And I feel like now with, I don't want to say the death of the superhero movie, but the decline of the superhero movie, I think we're going to start to see more opportunities open up for these more traditional stories.
Yeah, I mean, even superhero movies are trying to be more dramas too. I mean, Zack Snyder's Justice League, Avengers Endgame, Madam Web, these are dramas. These are hardcore dramas.
Yeah.
No, these are just movies that, again, that do feel like, you know, Joker, that feel like they want to be, where, again, then I appreciate The Suicide Squad from James Gunn, where it feels like comedy is the first genre, and then everything else comes after, superheroes comes after it. I want that to happen, where I just got tired of Marvel movies, where it's like, action movie, but comedy is second. I'm like, no, either make it funny. Like the first Ant-Man movie, I thought was pretty funny. Yeah. The rest of the movies, But yes, let's bring back good comedies. Let's get you guys to the next segment. All right, guys, we are wrapping up now. Let's get to the end. We talked about a lot today.
We did, definitely.
This is it for What Should We Watch Tonight? What should we watch tonight? We have some really good picks for you. Abigail, X-Men 97 from last week, Austin Powers, Mean Girls, so much to talk about. Thank you so much for joining me, Tony. Tony, where can we find you at?
Yeah, thank you very much. You can find me on YouTube at Impressive Tony.
All right, very impressive. You guys can find me at EJ Marino or on Flickering Myth, where you guys are watching this now. We are on podcast services, Spotify, Apple Music, or Apple, whatever the Apple podcast is. You guys can find us. Make sure you guys tune in. Thank you so much for joining us, and make sure you guys let us know what we should watch tonight right down below.